There's a huge milestone that's happening right now, my friends. And you're not going to see this in most of the major news stories because everything's focused elsewhere, but this is big. Antifa members have now been convicted formally on terror charges. This is big for law and order, for justice, and for the American way of life. And from my understanding, this is the first time this has now happened where you have Antifa members convicted on terror charges as part of being with Antifa. And this will likely be the opening salvo into blowing up the dam that protects these infestation monsters, these Antifa terror cells, who have been sowing violence and anti-Americanism for well over a decade now and have gotten away with it because the Democrat Party liked the useful idiots because it allowed them to threaten and force conservatives and people on the right to shut the hell up for fear of violence without the Democrat Party having to get their hands dirty. Now, these Antifa pussies started with cancel culture and doxing back in the 2010s, all the way to the 2015, 2016 era. And when those tactics didn't get enough results, well, then they began to surge in towards direct action, meaning that they did property damage, they attacked people, and of course there have been other things, unalived people in certain instances. And Antifa does this on purpose, mind you. Everything they do is not meant to be traditional protests. These guys take a page straight out of Nazi Germany with their brown shirt violence get-togethers. The Antifa types do everything that they do because they are intending to target and hurt people who they oppose. It's not about protesting. These people are trying to hurt and or kill anyone who disagrees with them. It's a terror tactic, no different than other terror cells around the world, except they are not as like a suicide bombing yet. They're just a loosely organized gang who all have a defining goal, which is anti-capitalism, anti-US, and pro-communism. They're a bunch of masked freaks who have been given way too much leeway by all of their friends in the government, on the Democrat Party, on the left. And they don't realize that they themselves are useful idiots who, if they were ever to achieve their goals of a new communist utopia, would be the first people to get cold because revolutionaries always must be eliminated after the revolution has ended because revolutionaries never stop. So as long as they're useful to the Democrat Party, they will continue to exist. Anyway, so let's talk about this conviction. This is from Breitbart. First ever Antifa terrorism convictions. 5 idiots have pleaded guilty in Texas ICE facility ambush. In a landmark case, 5 members of North Texas Antifa Cell have become the first defendants in America to be convicted on terror charges, pleading guilty to providing material support to terrorists after a violent July 4th ambush on the ICE Prairieland Detention Facility in Alvarado, Texas. Nathan Baumann, Seth Sikes, Joy Gibson, John Thomas, and Lynette Sharp entered their pleas on November 19th in shackles before a federal judge in Fort Worth. Thank freaking God. This needs to happen all over the place. Throw these people in jail. And each one of these pieces of are now facing up to 15 years in prison, marking what prosecutors are calling the nation's first successful terror charges against Antifa militants. And mark my words, this will not be the last. And eventually you need to go after them in more direct ways. They need to be purged from American society. Now, the plea by the 5 now convicted Antifa terrorists comes just days after a federal grand jury indicted 9 North Texas Antifa Cell operatives. See, 9 more on the way. The U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Texas has reported 7 additional alleged terrorists were charged by information for their roles and offenses, including rioting, using weapons and explosives, providing material support to terrorists, obstruction, and attempted murder of an Alvarado police officer and unarmed correctional officers at the Prairieland Detention Center on July 4th, according to the acting United States Attorney for the Northern District of Texas, Nancy E. Larson. She said, "This is the first indictment in the country against a group of violent Antifa Cell members." Yep, these are the pieces of So this is good. These people must be eradicated from polite society. They are a danger to the U.S., Homegrown terror has no place here, and these people have been hell-bent on bringing the ruination of this country for a long time. It's wonderful to see our government actually putting these a-holes in jail. We're a decade late, but I'm still going to celebrate the beginning stages here of ruthlessly pulling these people out of society and throwing them in jail. I hope we see a hell of a lot more here. And my suspicion is that we will see a lot more arrests coming. Now, during a 40-minute plea hearing before the U.S. Magistrate Judge Jeffrey Curitin, the judge asked the 5 defendants if they suffered ailments or took medication that would prevent them from understanding the proceedings. 2 of the Antifa gangsters claimed depression, 1 claimed bipolar disorder, and the other 2 claimed ADHD, all freaking irrelevant. You're a human being, you have the ability to choose, and they chose stupidity, they chose to be useful idiots, and they chose evil. The judge found them to be competent and accepted their voluntary guilty plea. In July, Breitbart's Paul Boyes reported the identification of 10 people charged in the attempted murder of ICE agents at the Alvarado facility. According to a press release from the Justice Department, the defendants, dressed in black military-style clothing, began shooting fireworks at the facility as part of an organized attack. Basically, they were trying to lure the cops out so they could try to kill them. Luckily, they were all terrible at their aim. But make no mistake, if they are not crushed and obliterated, eventually the violence will escalate to a level that you haven't seen in this country since maybe ever. So here's what they've been charged with. Riot with intent to commit an act of violence, which is pretty much all Antifa, involving conduct such as shooting and throwing fireworks and explosives, slashing tires on a government vehicle, spraying graffiti on property and vehicles, destroying a closed-circuit camera, shooting at officers, and dressed in black bloc. They also provided material support to terrorists, including property, services, training, etc., etc., conspiracy to use and carry an explosive and using and carrying an explosive during a riot, attempted murder, discharging a firearm during and in relation to and furtherance of a crime, corruptly concealing a document or record. They did that by transporting a box containing numerous Antifa materials such as insurrection planning, anti-law enforcement, anti-government, and anti-immigration enforcement documents and propaganda from Sanchez Estrada's residence to a location in Denton, Texas, intended to conceal the box contents and impair its availability for use in a federal grand jury, and a conspiracy to conceal documents. So all pretty standard laissez-faire. So they're looking at 15 years in prison. And they're going to get sentenced next year in March. And I hope they give them the maximum sentence. You need to make an example out of these pieces of shit. And every one of them that goes to jail, maximum sentences. No mercy. You need to put the word out that if you engage in terror, if you are an evil piece of shit who's out here trying to basically overthrow the United States of America, we will crush you. Wonderful that they're getting terror charges. That is lovely. We need to see a lot more of that. So a big win for the United States, my friends. And let's hope we get a lot more of that in the coming days.